And to Nigeria now, where the federal government's Special Public Works program to engage 774,000 unemployed Nigerians kicked off earlier this week after a 3-month delay. Joining us now to speak on the viability of the program is Public Affairs Analyst, Prof Chris Nwaokobia. You're welcome, sir. Okay, now...
it's my pleasure to be on with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. So is this good news, and are people right to be concerned that this is not going far enough, or is just some kind of, token?
I think very differently from those who are saying that it's something we must salute. I have raised proposals regarding the 774,000 jobs. Interestingly, I'm one of those who deeply are concerned about this job creation because my very personal friend and brother is the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, and quite a lot of people have asked me why I should make that pose a public subject, and I said no. He's my friend. He remains my friend and brother, but fundamentally, our nation comes first, and that is why I'm the convener of Country First movement. When you talk about 774,000 jobs, and you're going to pay young people who, according to the job regime or regimen, if you like, you're going to pay them 60,000 over a period of 3 months. That comes to about 20,000 naira per month. And are you saying that they are not employed? If they're employed, the minimum wage law says that you have to pay any employed worker a minimum of 30,000. So are they surreptitiously throwing away the Minimum Wage Act and law? That's point number one. Then point number two, why the freebies? Why are you giving unskilled and itinerant, unskilled Nigerian youths and Nigerian people 60,000 over a period of 3 months? Why? What is it going to do for them? You have a nation whose inflationary rate is on a two-digit scale, and then you want to pay people 60,000 for 3 months for doing practically nothing, unskilled labor. Why not create skill acquisition centers like what my friend in Kogi State, Yaya Bello, is doing? Why not create job skill acquisition centers? Why not empower them to go to the farm? Why not create something that ultimately will even up into wealth creation and growth? Why give freebies? And where in the world does a nation's economy thrive on freebies? I have also raised the question about if these funds, it's over almost 50 billion, is going to be thrown out to 774,000 young people without skilled training, they're obviously going to throw away the money. Right, and please. At the end of the day, not only will it increase the level of inflation, what happens? Let conjecture? If government, yeah, go on.
Yeah, two things. One, I don't think whether you have, come into the realization that this is supposed. You were talking about minimum wage. That's where I'm coming from. This is supposed to be ad hoc. It's not like they are fully employed workers. That's one. What have you thought about that? Then two, the Labour Minister of State said the skills acquired by these individuals who are going to be employed will get them self-employed. So apparently, they're thinking about acquisition of skill while they're on this job.
The question first is what job? Unskilled and itinerant. What job? What skill? Are you training them for a particular vocation? The answer is no. Then how do you say you're creating jobs? In October 2020, we were told there's a job creation they want to employ 774,000. That was the language. So when you talk about employment and you call it ad hoc employment, I think I have a problem with that. Beyond the populism, if you like, what is important is that we must begin to call a spade by its name if we want to get out of the nadir, out of the rut, to the amazing place of promise. And I say this advisedly. Throwing about 50 billion into the winds is another white elephant project, is another wrong calculation. I said something, I did talk about Kogi, for instance. Go and see what they're doing with agriculture. Go and see how young boys are being trained into and employed in the farms. They have a rice mill there, they have cassava farms. That's what you do. You train them and give them jobs. You don't dash monies. You know, this culture since 2015, we've had a culture of freebies. They dash monies. We had trader money. I don't know whether anybody's paying it back. We have the issue about they say they're feeding school children. Monies are going down the drain. Then we have what they call conditional cash transfers to the poorest of the poor. And these are poor economic policies that will lead our country nowhere. That is why inflation is at its highest rate in the past in our country today. In 10 years, we've had horrible inflation, particularly worst case within the past 6 years. And why? Because you don't throw freebies, you don't dash monies. Imagine if we were investing this money. You keep calling it freebies. I hope for the purposes of trying to get this, they're talking about, say for 3 months, some youths will be employed and will earn some money for helping with some selected projects across the 774 local governments of Nigeria. What are the projects, Andy?
Well, that's what they have said. So it's not like you're dashing people money. They're going to earn it for doing some work. I'm referring to when you said freebies, so that we'll get
unskilled labor.
And could I come in on the back of that?
How are they going to earn it?
If I may just come in on the back of that, and it's just to say that perhaps where we found ourselves in a position where the government is always wrong. Could it be, you said it could be a white elephant project, but then it could not. Do we not want to wait and ask the 774,000 people who will sign up for this project if they're better off having gone through it? Because clearly these 774,000 represent people who will be earning this money. So perhaps we should cut the government some slack, is all I'm saying.
No, let me say this. Clearly, if you were going to spend about 50 billion on unskilled itinerant Nigerian workers, as the Minister of State and those who contemplated this idea said, if you're spending that much of money with ASU threatening to go back on strike, if you were to give them that 50 billion, they will go back to school. If you were going to spend that kind of money on itinerant, if you invest it in electricity, perhaps we'll have another 4 or 5 hours of power. Then our young people who are doing menial jobs and they need electricity will be able to thrive. Just suppose that these funds were invested in other reasonable infrastructural projects. So many of these young people can thrive. They will be able to do their businesses and grow. If you give 60,000 over a period of 3 months to young people, how will they spend it? Inflation will take it away, and that money will be another money in the winds. We have seen that over and over again. The trader money, we have seen, I think that fundamentally what we need in this country is a government that will teach the people to fish, not to give people fishes.
Well, I did talk earlier on about the Minister of State for Labour saying that they would develop skills, because we'll have to look at both your side and his side, that they would develop skills, and these skills could
Where are the skill acquisition centers, indeed?
Well, that's what the Minister of State said, and we must be able to get across what he said. But let's talk about this. The controversy between the executive and the NAS that, of course, led to the sack of the DG of the NDE. I'm looking at the future. How can this kind of controversy be prevented for this kind of projects going forward?
No, I do not understand the details of the controversy. I do not understand the disagreement between those who had the ministries and the DG of NDE. But I know that he perhaps may have advised against against the project as because like I said, I am not against thinking about how to employ or create jobs. I am for the job creation, and I am for teaching and training our young people to fish. I am for accountability. I am for probity in governance, and that's exactly what I'm saying. I support government when they do what is right, trite and proper. After all, the young man in Kogi State that I mentioned is of the APC, but I've talked about how he has tried to create jobs in his state and how he has tried to create skill acquisition centers and development centers to get the young people engaged. And that's exactly why I'm here. I'm saying that the time has come for us, rather than adopting the tendency for freebies, to create effective skill development centers. We can have 6 in 6 geopolitical zones and ensure that our young people who are unemployable become employable.
Okay, let me just throw this out to you. Is it possible that when we profile the people who are beneficiaries of this particular project, they may have been people who are down on their luck and without this project may have been tempted to go into criminal activities? So if only for those 3 months they're taking out of that zone, might that not have its benefits?
Now,
please hold on to that thought. We're going on hold on to that thought, if you might. We're going on a brief break. We'll be back and continue with this conversation. Okay, well, still on the State of the Nation, we have Professor Chris Nwaokobia with us to continue the conversation. So I hope you held on to the thoughts before we went on the break. Do you remember the question? Are you happy to go on and expound on your thoughts?
No, can you repeat the question?
I just put to you the possibility that the very people we're speaking of, who are hopefully the beneficiaries of 774,000 jobs, might be people who are on the very brink of extreme poverty. And so even if for 3 months they're taken out of that circuit so that they don't have to resort to a life of crime, does that not have its benefits?
Let me say clearly that when we constantly think about giving cash to people to assuage or reduce poverty, if you like, we make a terrible mistake, because after 3 months, when that money is gone, it becomes worse for them. I think that what is important is learning how to address poverty and hunger proactively. Let me give you a practical instance. With just creating public toilets, India was able to remove about 90 million citizens from poverty. They had street toilets everywhere, and then you drop a rupee to use the toilet, and people, because of the population, were able to thrive. I think that rather than throwing monies into the hands of people who obviously may not be able to invest them, but come on, you know exactly what 20,000 can do for people here in this country. But now when you look at it, at the end of 3 months, when the job, perhaps they're no longer employed, they're no longer getting these freebies, what happens? I think that I would rather these funds are invested in electricity, in power. I'd rather they're invested in medical care, in health care. I'd rather they're invested in growing the farms, getting... Can we just have massive industrial farms in the 6 geopolitical zones, and you have these young people working in the farms, and they're learning a skill and they're getting paid? Can we just do things differently? Why must we just have this sense of populism in governance? I do not think that throwing fishes at people who are hungry will help them out of poverty and hunger. I think that progressively and proactively addressing the root cause of hunger and poverty is at the core of defeating hunger in this country.
All right, Chris, you talked about other areas. There are budgets for other areas. This was created particularly for this purpose. Have you sat back to think about not just the people now who are going to get 20,000 at the end of every month and the skills they will acquire, which can set them up, like the minister said, but the fact that they're doing projects, I don't know, the roads and across
They didn't say.
Let me land. Across the 774 local governments of the entire Nigeria, these will probably create some infrastructure or mend some dilapidated infrastructure, and that will go a long way to helping the economy as well.
Indeed, I won't do that. They didn't say that the project is for skill acquisition. They said is engagement of itinerant and unskilled. How do you engage them? What will they do? Clear the roads? Pick refuse and garbage on the streets? Is that what you're paying them salaries? But you have agencies that do that. You have LOMA, you have LASMA, you have FEMA, you have several agencies that are in charge of that. And they have people employed for that reason. I think that the tendency of petting situations in this country, a friend of mine called me and said, let's do this, be gradual. The tranquilizing drug of gradualism is at the core of the poverty that pervades this country. I think that we must learn to proactively investigate whatever we do with respect with our monies in this country. For me, it is freebies. What the 60,000 over a period of three months for 774,000 Nigerians is freebies. And at the end of the day, it will increase the two-digit level of inflation. It will make it worse. At the end of the day, these boys will come out, how are they going to invest it? What are they going to invest it on? Are they going to invest it with tariff of electricity going higher? Are they going to invest it when the price of fuel is... I think that we must learn to dispassionately address some of these things. I am not saying this because I have a problem with anybody. I'm not saying this because I just want to criticize government. I am saying this because the time for our government to deeply study how to address and defeat poverty is now. We can't continue to throw money around. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, we've heard you loud and clear. Thank you, Professor Chris Nwaokobia, for joining us on this discussion.